Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I've got another game here. This is a game two in another match with Azteca 2099. The first game wasn't that interesting. He beat me pretty good. So we're going straight to game two, straight to the two drop actually. I get a walking sponge, who isn't bad. He can remove flying, first strike, or something else from a creature, but the ability to remove flying is pretty good. I'm showing you this game because I make a few play mistakes here that I wanted to highlight. Hopefully, we'll all learn from my mistakes and not make them anymore, because I should have won this game, and you'll see why coming up in a sec. As he gets ready for his 3-drop. Okay, here's a Banalish Infantry. It's a 1/3 creature with banding. If you don't know what banding is, just to give you a quick explanation, whenever that guy attacks or blocks, he can put it in a band with other attacking or blocking creatures, and he gets to choose how combat damage is assigned for all creatures in that band. It actually is a little bit more complicated than that, but that's just the quick explanation. And I'm going to go ahead and give you a spoiler on this video. My first play mistake is I forget that banding works with blockers. For some reason, I had thought it was just for attacking creatures that can band. And I'm willing to give myself a little bit of slack for messing that up, because you don't really see banding a whole lot in competitive play. But I've been playing long enough that I should remember what banding does. And that's not very good on my part. So I don't go for... Wait, yeah, I do. See, I don't even remember what happens in this video. I'm just, making it up, I guess. So, it's a guy, lava dude. I'm obviously not going to attack with him anytime soon, especially once I remember how banding works, which is going to be coming up. You see, I attack with this 3/2. I'm actually hoping for a trade on either of his guys if he were to just block the banding. I'm thinking whatever. I can live with killing either one. You still have to order blockers, even in a band, regardless of the fact that it doesn't help anything. But you gotta do it. Rules say you have to do it. And I'm not even sure this guy knows for a fact that he's getting away with this, but the fact that he double blocked in the band leads me to believe he did, and that's when I facepalm, remembering that banding is better than I thought it was. So as you can imagine, having a 1/3 guy with banding is going to keep me from attacking for a while, especially now that he has a 3/4 guy that can band with it. He can band all of those guys. Have 7 power, 9 toughness, where he gets to split up the damage. So it doesn't make it very easy to swing into that, especially when all of my guys are relatively low toughness. But you just got to try to find somebody big enough to get in there, and this Hellkite Charger is a pretty good way to do that. Like I say, he's probably the best drop anybody gets in this game in terms of just an individual creature. And he can win a game by himself, Any combat effect that is significant is really good in this format, because you know what you're getting when you do that. Here's my first mistake. I should activate this Walking Sponge during his instep to make his vampire lose flying. Instead, I decided to do it during this main phase, which is wrong. You can do that. If I activated at the beginning of the instep, the flying wouldn't come back until the next instep, which would be later. And it would be really nice to have my Walking Sponge untapped during his next turn. You're going to see why in a bit. But in the meantime, I am going to tap his guy. I'm going to swing with a Hellkite Charger, just because, like I say, when you activate an onboard ability in this format, you know what you're going to get. Whereas when you just try to go for a Momir drop, you might get something worthless. You might actually get something that is actively detrimental. But in this case, swinging for 10 is swinging for 10. Obviously, I'd like to be able to go in for more, but with his banding dude, I can't bring much else that's relevant. But like I say, at this point in the game, I'm feeling pretty good about myself because I've got a really quick clock in this Hellkite Charger. And I know that if he just gets a creature with flying, I can tap it, not tap it, but tap the Walking Sponge to get rid of flying on his guy. And I do contemplate swinging again, but the more I think about it, the more I realize there's not any point to it. It would be better to just save guys for an Alpha Strike. And so that's what I'm going for. I'm just going to hit him down to 13, recognizing that if he doesn't get a second flyer, I'll be able to hit him for 10 again, put him down to 3. But like I say, I should have used the Walking Sponge at the end step. His guy would have lost flying. I would have it untapped. And then in that case, I could have used it again during this end step if he does get a second flyer. And once more during my main phase to take flying off of 2 of his guys. Which would have been really, really relevant because he gets himself a Shaku Endbringer, which does have flying and can exile a creature, which then puts a +1/+1 counter on the Shaku Endbringer. But at the beginning of his upkeep, he loses 3 life. So as you can see here, if my Walking Sponge was still untapped, I would be able to tap it now to take flying off of one of his creatures, use it again during my turn, take flying off of his other creature, attack him down to 3, and let him die to his own Shaku Endbringer. Which would have been pretty cool. And I'm realizing that now, as I look at the game state, I say to myself, yeah, that's what I should have done, but I didn't. So I'm really hoping that I can just get some way to push this Hellkite Charger through. And an Excruciator is not that. His damage can't be prevented. He has a 7/7, I think, whose damage cannot be prevented. Of course, banding is not actually preventing any damage. It's just kind of being inconvenient. I guess I should have swung. I suppose I should have taken flying off of his one thing and then swing, but I didn't. He gets another dragon, which is pretty good. No, he decides not to attack because he doesn't really get any value out of it. He would have hit the Undying. I would have gone ahead and blocked and given him the Undying on it, but it really wouldn't have helped him. And once again, I should have Walking Sponge during the end step just for giggles, because I don't lose anything by doing that. So the moral of his story, I hate to sound like I'm on a rant, but I should have just Walking Sponged end step. Now, technically, if he's not activating his Shaku Endbringer, I can just let him die to that, because he doesn't have enough power yet that he can exile 2 of my guys and then completely swing through me. But I still need to get some damage in somewhere. You know, he's on a 3-turn clock to that, and if he exiles 1 of my guys per turn and then exiles another one before his Alpha Strike, he could get there pretty quickly. So I'm trying to go with this Excruciator, sort of forgetting that he can band everybody against this guy and kill it. I was really just trying to kill 1 or 2 creatures with it, because I knew his Shaku Endbringer could just exile it whenever he felt like it. So now at this point that he's started to do this block, I activate the Walking Sponge. I think, no, I'm going to wait and do that. I'm going to wait and do that during his next turn. And I, of course, have to order this stuff, even though it doesn't matter. But I personally feel like that's the order I'm going to do. If I did get to pick, I would want to kill the cavalry, because then the banding would go away and I would actually be able to attack some. But it's really hard to deal combat damage, lethal combat damage to a creature with banding, because players who know how to use it try not to let that happen. So Yeah, that's the other moral you should take away from this game, is that banding is relevant in this format. This is one of the very, very few formats where you really care about banding. And only if the board is kind of stalled. Um, don't even get me into bands with other anything, because that's just so yuck. Like, there's plenty of articles you can look up about banding if you want to know. So you should go check, even on the mothership at magicthegathering.com. They have a lot of articles that they write now and then again about why they don't use banding anymore, why people can't understand what banding is, and how it can kind of wonk up a game like it did here. But anyway, I decided to save up for a bigger drop because I actually have a lot of luck with 9 drops. So I'm hoping that if he isn't too active with his Endbringer, I can drop a guy big enough to affect the game. Because there he hits my Hellkite Charger, and I'm pretty much, I just have to hope for an out. It's really all I can do right now, since I missed some pretty obvious plays. So yeah. Somebody asked me how good Shaku Endbringer actually is. Being able to exile a creature every turn is certainly relevant, and the fact that it gets bigger every time you do means that it can turn into a finisher in and of itself pretty quick. But like I say, in this format, it's hard to get it so that it's the only one on the board, and unless it is, you're losing 3 life a turn. So if your opponent is getting guys at a relatively same rate as you, and their drops are giving them some kind of value before you get rid of them, then you'd rather have Visara the Dreadful or Avatar of Woe, I think, because exiling isn't much better than just killing in this format, since everything's a token. Which, now that I think about it, his Undying guy wouldn't have come back anyway. I completely missed that in the actual course of the game. Which makes sense why he didn't go with that one attack earlier. So you see, this is why you have to watch your games again, because you recognize little things like that. Like, Undying is not that good in this format, nor is Persist or any of those. Blink effects suck. But anyway, he's down to 7, and he's going to lose 3 more life during his next upkeep. And since he now has a whole bunch of guys and the Shaku Endbringer, I'm just looking to deal 4 damage to him with my drop. Platinum Angel isn't a valid out because he could just exile it. Hoverguard Sweepers isn't a valid out because now that he's got the plant tokens on the Zendikon, there's no... To sign off, I want to remind everybody to remember how banding works and to activate abilities during your opponent's instep. You'll win more games that way.